don't like pressure?
There's the contact!
Too bad.
Dylan's gonna win it at the line!
Another healthy dose of it is coming this weekend in Michigan.
You kind of see who's who there.
It's one of 3 races left in the NASCAR regular season, which means there are just 3 more chances to get into the playoffs.
That'd be a really cool one to go out and win.
It's time to step up.
There's a few tracks I'm looking for redemption we go back to, and that's one.
Around the Track starts now.
Three races left, 3 playoff spots. Well, maybe more, depending on the number 3 car. There's a theme this week in Michigan, and welcome inside the fastest half hour in all of sports. This is Around the Track. I'm Gabe McDonald. Carla Gebhardt and America's crew chief Larry McReynolds will be along shortly. Michigan International Speedway is the host to a pivotal weekend in racing, but we also have to shout out the ladies of racing as well. We'll take a look at a young racer paving the way, but first, let's hit the Great Lakes with some great racing for this weekend. It's the FireKeepers Casino 400, and the fireworks will be in full force for sure. Strategy will be a big factor. We'll talk that with Larry in just a bit. But for drivers, you have to run a nearly perfect race to win here. The margin for error is at an all-time low here in the Irish Hills. The drivers tell us that it's one of the fastest tracks in the sport, and at this point, it's also one of the slickest. The drivers prep for this one a lot like they prep for Indy, only here you can't pass as easy despite how wide it is. Let's hear from the drivers themselves.
Yeah, it's Michigan. You know, I don't think it's really changed. Kind of be right around the middle, I'm sure, and maybe branch up a little bit higher on restarts and stuff. See guys kind of push that lane up higher and higher, chasing after the the residual of whatever grippy stuff they tried there a couple years ago. So you'll have some of that, but hard to pass the leader. We saw that last year, and I have no doubt that'll be the case again.
I really like Michigan. Obviously, pretty big race from a Ford standpoint. So that'd be a really cool one to go out and win. Just for the bragging rights from manufacturer standpoint. But otherwise, I always like going fast, and it's probably about the fastest we get to go.
There's a few tracks I'm looking for redemption we go back to, and that's one. Last year for us, we hit pit road for the final time, and we lost a wheel, and so that was a tough one. I feel like we pretty much won the race. Last stop was done. There wasn't any more cautions, so that was a brutal one to let slip away.
Now, you always have to beware of Ford in the Great Lakes. 9 straight wins for the manufacturer of this track, 44 overall wins to boot. No car maker has had a more run here, and rightfully so. The commercial cars are just made about an hour away from the track. Chris Buescher, he pulled it off last year, and he'll need to do it again to punch his ticket into the playoffs. And speaking of playoff-worthy people, Carla Gebhardt is someone who's no stranger to the track standing by.
Thanks so much, Gabe. Let's go trackside now, because we know this race has a ton on the line this weekend, even for the guys who are already locked into a playoff spot. That's Blake Harms over at Michigan International Speedway. And Blake, this track is really a challenge for anyone who takes it on. What are some of the maybe trouble spots that drivers are going to be looking for?
Well, Carla, there's no doubt turns 1 and 2 are both areas of the track that have claimed a lot of drivers in previous years. You may recall the hard crash that involved Kyle Busch and Austin Cindric 2 years ago. Chase Elliott ended up blowing a tire in turn 1 last year. So that is the end of the racetrack that tends to see the most problem areas. But we've seen crashes all over this track. We've seen them on the backstretch. We've seen them coming off at turn 4. Heck, we've even seen a crash right here in the tri-oval at the end of stage 2. So no matter what part of the track these guys are on, there's no doubt there's going to be at least some trouble come this weekend.
You already mentioned a few drivers that have had trouble there, but let's talk about Brad Keselowski right now. That's a big name around this track, and he's already locked into the playoffs, but lots of fans want to see him win this one bad. Why is that?
Well, Brad Keselowski is here from the Detroit area, about an hour or two to the northeast of here, and he has said before that this win would almost mean more to him than winning the Daytona 500. It is clear the stands would go absolutely bonkers if he were to take the checkered flag this weekend. He's come close before. There's no doubt this is a box he wants to check before the end of his career.
So we know a lot of fans are going to be, yes, looking out for him and hoping that he wins. But you've been coming to this track for a while now, Blake. What makes it so special for you personally?
Well, Carla, as a race fan in the Midwest, it's just so nice to have a spot close to home. I'm from the west side of Michigan. I've been coming here since 2005, and the camaraderie here. We've been in the infield with the campers, which, by the way, is sold out for the 3rd straight year. The parking lots are packed every single year. Fans in Michigan love this race. It is always entertaining, and there are a lot of good drivers who are capable of winning. It is certainly a weekend that I have circled on my calendar every year, and this year is no different.
Yeah, a lot of drivers capable, but Blake, I got to ask you, if you had to make a pick for this weekend, what driver are you choosing?
Carla, that's a tough one. I think Kyle Larson's going to be hard to beat. It seems like he's on top of his game this summer. I also think Ryan Blaney could very easily come back and do it. He won at a similar style track, Pocono, just a few weeks ago. I think those two could easily get a win, but I could probably name 10 guys who will be up toward the front at the end as well, which means it's going to be that much more of an exciting race this weekend.
Absolutely. Blake Harms, we appreciate it so much. Well, now it's time to welcome in America's crew chief for the full breakdown of the race this weekend. And we're going to talk about Michigan. But Larry, I mean, we cannot ignore what happened in Richmond over the weekend, what some are calling some egregious moves by Austin Dillon to get the win at Richmond. Obviously, NASCAR handed down the penalty. He gets to keep the win, but not the playoff eligibility from the win. Did they get it right?
I have mixed feelings and mixed emotions, Carla, and I do feel like that they got it right in many, many ways. Do I agree with what Austin Dillon did? Absolutely not, but he did what he needed to do. He was a driver that entered that race 32nd in points, so far below the cut line he couldn't even see it, and he had a good race car. I think that gets lost in the mix. He did have a good race car, but I don't want to see our races in that way. In my book, we're the top motorsports in all of the world, and we don't need our races ending that way, but you kind of get why he did what he did. But I'm a little confused. You know, I felt like I did not know, and I'm speaking from a guy that's been here for 44 years. I wasn't sure where the line was before Sunday night at Richmond. I feel like with the ruling they made, they've moved that line. I still am not sure where that line. I know we can't have the wild, wild west, and if you don't take care of business, that's exactly what will happen. No telling how these races will end up. But I feel like the line has been moved now. I still am not sure where the line's at, but all that matters, those guys gripping the steering wheel know where it's at, but we'll see going forward.
It seems like NASCAR making this move was to send a message to drivers. So what do you think that message is, and how are these drivers going to respond now?
That we want you to race hard. We do not, the last thing I want to do is take a step backwards with the way these races are officiated, because it's kind of still the boys have at it to some degree. But I think the message is that we're fine with you racing hard. We're fine with you leaning on each other. And you look at a lot of things that's happened at the end of races for a driver to win a race, maybe advance to the next round, maybe advance to the championship four. We've seen some bump and run. We've seen some beating and banging. But I think as long as two drivers are in proximity and you're not hooking somebody and turning them the wall, or going from 5 to 6 car lengths back to just driving in there till you dump them, I think that's the message they're sending.
Will be interesting to see, but let's move on to Michigan now. The FireKeepers Casino 400. This is a 2-mile track, and this is a place where Ford has really dominated, winning every race dating back to 2018 that's been held there. So I guess the question would be, can Ford do it again this weekend?
Well, we know that Ford has had a tough time finding victory lane in 2024. They have found it 5 times with 4 different drivers. I don't know why the Fords have been so good there. I even go back to my days, Carla, whether it was the way the engines were structured. It seemed like we were always really, really strong when we go to that 2-mile racetrack. Now, yeah, they've won the last 9 races at Michigan, courtesy a lot of them of Kevin Harvick. And we know Kevin Harvick is not in the field this weekend. But is this an opportunity for one of those Stewart-Haas racing drivers to get a win? They're all still looking for their first win of the season. They all are well below the cut line in a must-win situation. The group I've really got my eye on, though, are the Toyotas. Toyota has not won a race there since Matt Kenseth won when he was driving for Joe Gibbs Racing. Denny Hamlin has finished 3rd the last 2 races there, but they've had a tough time closing the deal. I feel like the Toyotas will roll in there with good speed, but can they close the deal in this 400-mile race on Sunday?
That'll certainly be something to watch for. And lots of people are saying that this race in Michigan is kind of like the Indy Oval. So I want to know, what can we expect from that pit strategy, and what's that fuel window look like at Michigan?
Yeah, the fuel window is somewhere around 45 to 50 laps, and the shorter first stage, it kind of takes care of itself. You do not have to stop for fuel if we don't get a caution. But in the longer two stages, stage 2 and the final stage, absolutely you have to pit at least for once. But I think the playbook is open wider. Tire fall off is not that great there. Oh, by the way, we only have the primary tire to deal with this week at Michigan, not like Richmond. So I don't know that because of the tire fall off not being that great, that you even split those two longer stages in half. I think for the most part you run as far as you can on fuel, maybe a little lighter than that. Come get tires. I think the playbook is open, maybe right sides only, maybe left sides only, maybe fuel only, because again, tire fall off is not that great. 2 years ago when Kevin Harvick won this race, in stage 3, he ran as far as he possibly could, pitted a little early. The minute he pitted, he stayed on the lead lap. The caution came out. Everybody else had to come to pit road because they couldn't make it to the end on fuel. He gets the track position and wins the race.
Huge benefit there, and we're talking about Ford drivers. Let's go ahead and add Chris Buescher into that. I mean, he was a benefit of Austin Dillon's penalty this week, just moving to the cut line. He also won this race just last season. So what are the chances that the 17 could find victory lane again?
The 17, and quite honestly, RFK Racing, Brad Keselowski in the 6, they're a little bit of a head scratcher right now. You know, Brad Keselowski got that win at Darlington back in May, but when you look at the way the 17 and the 6 is running right now, it's kind of up and down. Even the finishes, they'll finish top 5, then they can't even finish inside the top 20. But considering how the Fords have been running at Michigan over the last number of years, Chris Buescher winning this race, maybe this is where they can get it done and they don't have to sweat that cut line anymore.
You mentioned that you're looking at all the Toyotas this weekend. So is it a Toyota driver? Is that your pick to win?
I'm watching all of those guys around the cut line. We've already talked about Chris Buescher. He won this race a year ago. Martin Truex Jr., who has 78 points now above the cut line. He's never won at Michigan, but he's always fast. He has finished second there several times. And I tell you a guy I'm really watching because they're bringing speed every single week. Bubba Wallace in that 23 car. They're just above the cut line. He's not won at Michigan. He did win a Truck Series race there back in 2017. 2 years ago, he did finish second after getting his very first career pole. If you ask me to pick someone besides a favorite, maybe from Hendrick Motorsports or Joe Gibbs Racing, I'd probably say Bubba Wallace in that 23.
All right, we will be looking out for that at Michigan. Of course, Michigan is just one of the few races left before these drivers get to the playoffs. Larry Mack, we appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
Gabe?
All right, thanks, guys. Well, as you heard from Larry and Carla there, Wednesday's ruling from NASCAR on letting Austin Dillon keep the win, but taking his playoff ticket away was monumental. It slingshot him back from a chance at the Cup to 31st in the standings, but it also affected the drivers on the bubble with just 3 races to go in the regular season. Martin Truex Jr.'s big points pad has been dwindling the last few weeks, especially after his car was out early at Richmond. He's still pretty safe, though, but will need to finish strong to hold into that first unlocked spot there at 13. His teammate Ty Gibbs is right behind him at 18 points above the Cup. Bubba Wallace, he's moved from the outside looking in to 3 points clear of the line. Then you have Chris Buescher, who has the final spot as of now via a tiebreaker, but he's tied with Ross Chastain for that final spot. And suddenly, 99 points doesn't seem so bad for Chase Briscoe. It's an extreme long shot, and he'll most likely have to win a race to steal a spot in the playoffs. Same thing for Austin Dillon's RCR teammate Kyle Busch, who would like to forget this year even existed.
At first, it was just something fun, and then I just spiraled into this is my life now.
This kart racer could soon join the ranks of NASCAR's elite, but we all start somewhere. See where Haley Stone is dominating in just a bit. And the car carousel of 2024 has been crazy to say the least. Closures, drivers jumping teams, call-ups, and even send-downs. We've got 2 more moves and where that leaves the open rides coming up next. And there are plenty of hometown ties in this race this weekend, but you know about Brad Keselowski by now, but another Cup Series driver is trying to become the hometown champ. You'll hear from him when Around the Track continues. Back here on Around the Track, another domino falls in the silly season saga. Eric Jones is staying with Legacy Motor Club and the 43 car, signing a multi-year extension to drive the iconic car that belonged to the king himself, Richard Petty. Jones started at Joe Gibbs Racing, but has since anchored Legacy's lineup with John Hunter Nemechek and occasionally his team owner, Hall of Fame driver Jimmy Johnson. 276 Cup starts in his career, Jones has 3 wins to go with his 37 top 5 finishes. And look who's back in the Cup Series. The pride of Denver, North Carolina, A.J. Allmendinger will return to NASCAR's highest level with Colleague Racing. He'll be back in the 16 car, same team he was with last season before moving down to the Xfinity ranks. They might not be done just yet. Colleague could be in the market for one of the open charters, which would give Allmendinger a new teammate. A.J. has 3 Cup Series wins, including one at the Brickyard. So what does that leave for open rides in 2025? We know Spire has an opening after telling Corey LaJoy he won't be back in the 7 car. Front Row Motorsports still has an opening to join Ty Gilliland and newcomer Noah Gregson for next year. And there's still 2 open charters still to be sold from the Stewart-Haas Racing closure. Sources tell us that Trackhouse and 2311 have talked with SHR to purchase them. However, nothing is official and other offers could be on the table. Now, Brad Keselowski has won almost everything there is to win in NASCAR, but one thing eluding him is a win at Michigan. And now there's another Michigan kid who's looking to notch his own legacy in the Irish Hills, and he's got momentum on his side over the past few weeks. Carson Osavar won a late model race at his local hometown track last week in Berlin, Michigan, just down the road from where we're racing this weekend. Now he'll get a chance to run it in the field for the first time as a Cup Series driver. For the driver of the 77 Spire Motorsports Chevy, this one means a little extra.
To be able to put that car on the racetrack and hopefully run well for them, but also to every one of their employees that get to watch it, everybody at home that's a fan of me or friends and family too that will be at the racetrack in the motorhome lot. I'm excited to just kind of see everybody and take it in on Sunday. I've been there a handful of times to watch it, but it'd be super cool to be in the field.
And the future is female when it comes to racing. Up next, you'll meet one girl who's taking her talents to the national stage for the first time. But don't be shocked when you see her in a touring series sometime soon. In a mid-race wreck created chaos in the truck series, but 10 drivers did make it out and advance to the playoffs. You'll meet them in just a bit right here on Around the Track. No Truck Series this weekend because the teams are prepping for round 1 of the Craftsman Truck Series playoffs. A name we expect to see sooner than later in the Cup Series. Christian Eckes won the regular season title, but it'll be Corey Heim going into the round of 10 with the most playoff points, 3 ahead of Eckes after the regular season. Others in the field include Ty Majeski, Nick Sanchez, Rajah Caruth, and 2-time truck champion Ben Rhodes. They start the march for the title next week away from the other 2 national series. They'll go to Milwaukee next Sunday to begin the Truck Series playoffs. Tony Breedinger, Natalie Decker, Isabella Robusto, all ladies who are currently driving in a major series, making a name for themselves. They're paving the way for a whole new generation of drivers who are starting the same way they did, on a kart. One girl could soon join them in the big series. Dan DeRue introduces Haley Stone in this week's Garage Confidential.
I like how you lined up that way. That was like a perfect lineup. You were like scraping the wall to get straight.
Boredom is what brought Haley Stone here.
The day after Thanksgiving, then we literally just got bored.
While others were sleeping off their turkey dinner, she was whipping and weaving, screeching, spinning, and loving every minute.
No, don't break his camera.
She's making pass moves that you didn't know were possible on the track. Every time she races, she crushes it.
Haley, you broke it. We can't take you anywhere.
Within a month of starting out, the 12-year-old was beating the times of drivers who've been circling this track for years.
Which is like, I can do this too, and I'm gonna beat you.
That's 0.3 off yesterday.
At first it was just something fun, and then I just spiraled into this is my life now.
It's kind of like, all right, you want to do it? Let's see what happens.
2.5 years later.
She's not just racing here, she's racing outdoors too.
We're racing at PPIR.
She may just have come up with the formula.
Hey, Haley, can you put the side plot on, please?
For a career.
There's 10, 11, 12-year-olds, some 8-year-olds who are doing 50, 60 miles an hour. Go have fun. Go fast. It's real racing. It is legitimate real racing.
A preteen adrenaline junkie, already competing in international go-kart championships like the K1 in California for cash and clout, podiums and prizes, and maybe best of all, bragging rights against the boys.
There's not many girls racing. There's just not.
I mean, like, most of the boys are afraid of me.
It seems some of these helmets hide a secret. A sport dominated by males is starting to welcome young women behind the wheel.
Personally, I just love a woman in motorsports. That's always something I will support, especially with it being such a minority.
When I do get the chance to race against boys and sometimes beat them, it is a lot of fun. It feels really, really good to be part of that pack.
I feel like people are more likely to try to push me around, so I have to like act more aggressive just because people will be like, oh, she's just a girl, like she won't fight back.
If only those boys knew.
They're all really stubborn and they get really mad when I beat them, but it's just fun.
How these ladies are breaking stereotypes at breakneck speeds.
She's fast. Okay. She's fast, and her helmet's cool too.
Girls like Haley, who discovered the cure for boredom.
Oh, that was fun.
It's driving 60 miles per hour on a go-kart track, where girl power is the fuel revving the engine.
The girl community has definitely been growing a lot. I love it. It's really fun to see girls racing out here.
Awesome stuff. Thanks to Dan for that story. Well, the ace, Austin Dillon, got to do pretty much everything last week in his win except to keep the playoff ticket. Hey, at least his burnout was cool, right? Joey didn't think so, but I digress. We'll get to burn it down on race day in Michigan. We got the odds and a victory lane locks coming up next when we finish up around the track. Well, the sports books think very highly of the 11 car this week. Going into race weekend, Denny Hamlin had the best odds at 5.5 to 1. Close behind is Kyle Larson at 6.5 to 1. Then you have Ryan Blaney. He shoots up the board this week. He's the highest ranked Ford driver on the board at 8 to 1 at Michigan. That ties Martin Truex Jr. and Tyler Reddick. Then Logano at 10 to 1. Let's show you the odds for the bubble guys though. NASCAR has this funny way of drivers in desperation getting to the line first. Of the three we talked about earlier, Chris Buescher is tops at 14 to 1. Bubba Wallace, he's next at 20 to 1. Then you have Ross Chastain with 28 to 1 odds to win at Michigan. And now it's time for my pick. I'm going with one of the heavy favorites, Ryan Blaney. He won this race in 2021. I'd like him to get his third win this year at Michigan. Enjoy the race in Michigan. We'll see you next week when we preview the race ahead of Daytona.